Today we'll be working on creating watercolor geodes. To create our geodes, we'll be doing a wet on wet watercolor technique. That means that you will be getting your paper wet and then adding wet watercolor to the paper. I will show you. So we're going to start with getting our paintbrush wet and drawing an oval with just water on your paper. While that oval is still wet, you're going to pick a color. I'll pick red. And with your wet watercolor, you are going to draw an oval on that wet spot of paint. While the paint is still wet, you're going to take some salt and sprinkle it on your paper. This makes our art look bubbly. So while this is still wet, I'm going to take another color. I'm going to choose purple, and I'm going to draw another oval inside the oval that I already have. This is allowing the red and the purple to mix together a little bit. You have to move pretty quickly with this because your paper has to stay wet while you're working. We want it to look like it has rings to show the different areas of color and texture in the geode. You want to make sure that you are adding colors in that aren't opposites next to each other, otherwise they will turn brown. So there's my first geode. I'm going to allow that to dry, and then I'll show you a second one. Make sure that your brush is totally clean, and then you're going to get another area of your paper wet to practice your wet on wet technique. I'm going to have this oval be going off of the page. This one I'm going to use blues and greens and a little bit of yellow. So I'm starting with my blue watercolor. And remember, you're always making sure that the paper is wet when you put your wet paint on. For this one, I'm going to add the salt last and see how that turns out. If you want, you could try adding some extra water to your ovals to see how the paint kind of flows into each other. It should be kind of like tie-dye where it's flowing. And then you can sprinkle some salt in when you're done. Okay, I'm going to start filling my page with these different geodes, so I'll pause this while I do that. Now that my watercolor geodes are dry, I'm going to use a paper towel to rub off the dried salt that's stuck to my paper. It's okay if a little bit of salt is left on, but try to get most of it off, but it gets pretty stuck in there. Okay, so our next steps is that you can use metallic markers to add some rings to those geodes to give them some extra designs. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that in fast mode. Next, in the white space or negative space of our drawing, we are going to add mini Zentangle drawings. Zentangles are black and white patterns of art that are just made of black and white, different patterns that you can invent to create your shapes. When we are making these shapes, we're going to make organic shapes in the white space of our art. Organic shapes are different than traditional shapes like squares, rectangles, or circles because they are made up of these more free-flowing, irregular shapes and lines. So you're gonna fill up your white spaces with these shapes, and then later we're going to fill them with our Zentangle art. You can use a Sharpie for this part like I am here. And you can make your organic shapes look however you want to. They don't have to match mine. They can be different. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up my page with these shapes, and I'll put this on fast mode.